Hey y'all, welcome back to Exile Wargaming, where today we're going to be talking about Harlequins. Now, recently, as of today, it's been kind of a whirlwind. This may be the fastest video I've ever put out. Most of, if not all, of the Eldari Codex has been leaked. I was going to wait until I got my hands on a codex myself to go through it, but because the rest of the world seems to know exactly what we're getting into, I thought I'd put out a video just giving you my initial thoughts and impressions of the new Ghosts of the Webway detachment. So when I first started looking at the data sheets, what I was really trying to see is if Harlequins are going to be a standalone faction by themselves, or if we're going to need to introduce some Craft World or Asuryani components to maintain that high level of competitiveness. If we are going to do well, I believe that our Harlequin troop has to be able to become the workhorse of our army. Now, in the Ghost of the Webway detachment, I believe they get to be just that. In this detachment, they're getting OC2, they're getting battle line. All of their melee weapons are equipped with devastating wounds, and they have options for +1 to wound, -1 to hit, and reroll ones to hit. The biggest change is going to come in the form of our fusion and our neuro pistols. No longer are the fusion pistols D3 Melta 2, they are now up to D6 Melta 2, and our neuro pistols went from 0 AP to -2 AP. So our Harlequin troops can really start punching into absolutely everything. In melee, of course, we're going to use +1 to wound most of the time. Unless we're getting charged ourselves, then it may be smart to use that -1 to hit, let our invulnerable saves pick up a little bit, and maybe fight on death if we got a good stratagem for it afterwards. But as Harlequin troops are right now, I believe the more the better. These things can punch into anything. Now, the Troupe Master had a pretty incredible glow up as well, going from damage 1 on his sword or his special weapon to damage 2 with dev wounds. If this was the only change that happened for us and we kept the same detachment we did before, this would have been a huge boon for Harlequin players. So I am very, very happy about this. He did go up in points substantially. It seems, I believe, about 20 points, maybe, if these points are accurate. But I think it's well worth it. He does get +1 to wound himself and rerolls of ones to hit. So in melee, that's all right. He's hitting on 2s. When he's shooting his fusion pistol, he's hitting on 2s as well. And he also confers a 6-inch pile in and consolidate to his unit. And they don't have to touch the absolute closest model to get there. So he's just really allowing us to punch up. This would have been a shame if, our new Exarchs were hitting harder than a Troupe Master, but now it seems like he can start carrying his own weight. So the Solitaire remains relatively unchanged. His damage output and mobility are exactly the same. The big difference being he went from having a 3+ invulnerable save to a 4+, but he gained 1 wound instead. I will still be taking a Solitaire in almost every one of my lists. I believe that Lone Op and Fights First are just too good to pass up. Now, the Death Jester had some real subtle changes, but they're going to make for a big impact. No longer does he have devastating wounds, but his weapon did go from Strength 6 -1 AP 2 damage to -2 AP. He doesn't need to kill something in order to put out a battle shock test, and you can run multiple Death Jesters, and each one of them can pick one of the abilities that he had before. So Sustain 3, Precision, or Ignores Cover. In the prior index, only one of these units on the table can select one of those abilities. So this is nice to be able to throw some lone ops around the board. And there are a couple enhancements that may serve him well later on. Now, the Shadowseer got a substantial change. I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to utilize her just yet, but going from being able to advance in charge to giving a unit 18-inch lone op and making enemies take hazardous tests in melee, it seems like she may have a good bit of utility otherwise, and I do not believe her points went up at all. So this is a cheap model that can do something relatively impactful. You could protect your home field objective from indirect fire that may be becoming a little bit more predominant nowadays. Or if an enemy unit wants to jump into them, like a unit of Exalted 8-bound or Custodes with 1,000,000 attacks, we might be able to steal a couple of them away afterwards in just an abundance of hazardous tests. Now, the Skyweavers didn't change much at all. Instead of doing flyover mortals, they're now -1 to hit. The Zephyr Glaives, though, instead of going from 5 -1, 2 damage each, they're now at 6-2-2, which I believe makes this the standout choice over Star Bolus. Just seems like those 8 attacks at 6-2-2 are going to do a good bit more than, 2d3 at 7-2-2. But who knows? Depends on what you want to use them for. I'm going to be running Zephyr Glaives to start with these Skyweavers when I first get these Quins back on the board. Now, the Starweavers changed not much at all. Shuriken Cannons overall went from sustained 1 to lethal hits, but everything else seems to remain unchanged. Thank God we get Rapid Reembarkation still here, because that is bread and butter of a lot of our Harlequin armies. And then Void Weavers changed substantially. Now, they did get 18-inch Lone Op and Stealth, but the Prismatic Cannon went from 36 inches to 24. So you'll be playing kind of a delicate shooting game with them. Hopefully, they can hold the home field objective, peek out every once in a while when you need, shoot something off the mid-board or back up maybe some of your outer objectives. But this still isn't one of those units for possibly 125 points that I'd be really looking to shove a ton of in my lists. But it definitely has a lot more uses and survivability than it did before. We got a really nice suite of stratagems. We have Fight on Death on a 4+. We get to resurrect a character at half wounds remaining. This is nice for our Solitaire or Death Jesters or our Troupe Master that may be holding a impact mortal enhancements, perhaps. We have access to fallback, shoot, and charge, which is a big deal for us. We have a 6-inch reactive move if someone moves within 9 inches, and it does not say we can't get back into transport, so this may be something very nice to pair up with Falcons, so we can just continually reload those troops and regain the rerolls for our wounds afterwards. We can also charge one of our opponent's units in their turn, sort of like Heroic Intervention, but they don't have to make a charge themselves for us to make that happen. So there may be some scenarios where your opponent's just leaving some OC on an objective to contest it from you the following turn, and it might be nice to just get in there and wipe all that OC off before the end of it. Not too bad of an option there. And they also have a really cagey ability to pick up and place one of our Harlequin infantry units in reserve. So we don't have a lot of deep strike across our board. We're going to be bringing things off board edges most often. But this is very nice to kind of redeploy something, especially if we're using some big Harlequin bricks with a bunch of devastating wounds or impact mortals or whatever it may be afterwards. Now, if that's where we left everything off, I think that we would be pretty okay. But the fact that our Harlequins, I believe at this point, are going to have access to battle focus, it makes it so much better. Having access to +2 to move, while also being able to disembark from a vehicle 3 inches, gets our Harlequin troops moving at 13 inches, which is very, very helpful for our fusion pistols. When we're looking at a lot of the boards, the deployment zones, the distance to the objectives, this can change everything and make those fusion pistols just hit that much harder. Also have access now to no Overwatch, which again is monstrous for us. If this is all we got from Battle Focus, I think we'd be in really, really great shape. This is just like having free access to a bunch of stratagems. We also get D6 plus 1-inch move for all of our vehicles. It doesn't say anything about advancing or anything like that, so I believe we just get some extra movement, and these murder boats, Harlequins with fusion pistols and Starweavers, can just start wreaking havoc everywhere. We get an extra 6-inch pile in and consolidate. We can charge units falling back from us in combat, D6 plus 1 inches. So if they're trying to run away, maybe we hold them in. We also get a reactive move when one shot. So if our opponent's not wiping out the entire unit in one go, we could try to get them back behind a wall or maybe back inside of a transport if we really needed to. But then our detachment rule also allows us to move through enemy models in the charge phase. So move blocking may be very difficult for our opponents, so we can get really anywhere we want across the board. And these Harlequins are sitting on 25mm bases. We could pretty much put ourselves wherever we need to be. So I think we're back. I don't think we have to bring in a ton of Craft World counterparts to be competitive. I think if you wanted to run mono quins, you can do so and do it very, very well. We're missing a few key components, but I don't necessarily know that we need them anymore with the increase in damage potential, the lethality of all of our units right now. Fusion pistols going up to D6 +2 in Melta range is huge. The Troupe Master getting a damage to devastating weapon is monstrous. We don't have an anvil unit like we used to. We don't have a ton of fights first options in Harlequins like we used to, but we do have a little fight on death. We have the ability to be cagey. We have a ton of reactive strats and abilities that we can get into, and we have a lot of transport shenanigans. There's a point where we're just going to be able to out-activate our opponents at almost every corner. A lot of the lists I've been trying to make right now are between 18 and maybe 20 total units, and each one of these units could really punch up. So I think we're in a really, really great position to find a pretty high level of success. GW had an opportunity to just steamroll us. And instead, I feel like we got a second Christmas. This looks amazing up front. It's more than what I was hoping for. I'm a pessimist, especially playing Quins for almost all of 10th. And I honestly could not be happier. I cannot wait to get these on the board. We're going to get some new models painted up here very, very soon. As we lost quite a few of them about a month ago. But I look forward to getting as many games up as I possibly can, and then digging into quite a few of the different Eldari detachments as soon as we get this one dialed in as well. But look, I know this isn't our traditional style of video. This is pretty haphazardly thrown up there, but I hope you're as excited about this as I am. I can't wait to hear about all the new synergies and strategies that you're coming up with, what you might add from the Craft World side of things, or if you're going to take some of these incredible data sheets and pour them over to the Reaper's Wager on the Drukhari side of things. I again look forward to hearing it all in the comments. Please like, share, subscribe, join the Discord. Any little bit of help means more than you can possibly imagine. But take care, and I'll see y'all in the next video.